This is a presentation for the 499 in Public Health and Advocacy that I finished in the spring of 2020, and some of the work was also done, most of it was done in the previous semester, the prior semester. Why did I choose Public Health and Advocacy? I decided to do my final credits as a 499 in Public Health and Advocacy because I saw the great gap existing before me, as I saw myself unable to be treated because I have a rare disease, and it's a pre-existing condition to my cancer treatment that would normally be recommended for my case, but they're too nervous to do it because of a rare disease that I have when they don't actually know enough about it to know that it would actually be safe to do. So I realized that somebody needs to be there advocating for myself as I was, and for others like me, like Dr. Roswell Park the 8th, who sadly passed away from a rare cancer just this month. And this is partially his legacy and what he last emailed me, letting me know that he was the most proud of out of all of the things that he had ever seen done within the INS department. So this is a presentation showing the different conferences and events that I went to for the public health and advocacy that I was doing. I also advocated on Capitol Hill this year, and I went to DC during the last week of February, and I had meetings with all of the different senators and congressmen and congresswomen, which were in New York as well as a few other states. I just tagged along to watch. But any of them which were done within New York, within the district that I live in, were actually written in as a meeting with me because I was officiated in September of 2019 as the ambassador for rare diseases in the town of Cheektowaga. I'm getting the proclamation down now. Off of this board to show you up close. It also makes May, which is next month, Ehlers-Danlos Awareness Month. This was actually done as a surprise, and there actually is an article in the Bee which explains in the Cheektowaga Bee that this was done totally a surprise to me. I did not know that this was coming, and I was just given a call, and I just picked up the phone that day and got the question, can you make it to Town Hall by, for the two meetings that we're having? And I said, yes. Why? And they're like, just come, just make sure that you come. So, I did. I made sure that I made it, and I got surprised by this, and it actually was one of a few things that actually made me personally speechless. And if you know me at all, you'll know that I'm not normally one to be speechless. So if I was left speechless, that means that you did an excellent job. So this is that proclamation. By getting that proclamation, when I made these appointments, and when appointments were made for me, for meeting with the congressional staff and congressmen and women within Capitol Hill, it was actually made so that the appointment was made with me on behalf of the town of Cheektowaga, which, makes it sound, of course, a lot more important, because if I'm officiated by a town, then that means I do actually legally get to speak on behalf of that town, which is a special and unique thing, and that's why it kind of turns their heads whenever I say it, because they've never probably heard it before, because it happened during this proclamation to make May Ehlers-Danlos Awareness Month, and they asked if I wanted anything else at the end. The only things that I was able to utter out were, could I please, for free, for voluntarily, as a position, represent the town of Cheektowaga on behalf of public health and advocacy issues to do with rare and chronic diseases? And they said yes, of course, and they, very graciously accepted the offer. And I have actually had some people contact me through the town of Cheektowaga. They contact the supervisor first via the article that's in the Bee, or if they happen to, look on the webpage for the town, and then she contacts me if she feels like it's fitting, so that way I don't get a whole bunch of emails that are very, overwhelming. So I went to San Francisco, or where did I go? Yeah, I went to San Francisco last semester. I went to Washington, D.C., and I also went to San Diego. I will start with San Diego because that was the longest ago, I think, for last year. I went to San Diego in September. I don't know. We're just going to go in random order. Sorry. But I went to San Diego in September. and I attended the Global Genes Conference, and that is an international conference. There I made great connections with Global Genes, and they invited me to a conference which was going to be taking place in San Francisco right after the conference for the National Organization of Rare Disorders, which is the first place that I went to a conference for, which is where this adorable zebra is with a cowboy hat. It's one of the things that Nora does to raise awareness is they give out these little zebras, and they are very special to the boys and girls that I give them to that have rare diseases. Fact-wise, unfortunately, 50% of those diagnosed with a rare disease or disorder are children, and out of the children diagnosed with a rare disorder, 1/3 of them will not make it till their 5th birthday, because statistically, there's 7,000 rare diseases, and treatment-wise, with the FDA, less than 5% of them actually have FDA-approved treatments, and even if they do have an FDA-approved treatment, sadly, it's not a very, it's basically the best that they can give the patient, so it's making an exchange. You have to exchange a lot of side effects for the results in order to live, although they have prolonged the lives of many. At these conferences, such as the one at Global Genes, where I got invited to go to what's called their Data DIY conferences, which was a set of conferences set up for students and professionals, and as well as nonprofit owners, and they specifically picked who went to the conference as they saw people interacting at the conference, it seemed. Like they would hand only certain people a flyer, or maybe they handed everybody a flyer, but not a lot of people went, shockingly, although I thought that they were excellent conferences, and it made it a lot better that not a lot of the other students/advocates went, because then it was mostly skilled professionals, such as doctors, people that work at the National Institute of Health, people that work at other nonprofits, but people that know about rare diseases, and not just students who happen to have come to a conference because they happen to have qualified because I got the policy changed, yet I can tell that they're quote-unquote a dime a dozen scientists, because yes, they're great in the lab, they can read the directions, and they can replicate results, but when we're doing the biochemistry of rare diseases, which is what my degree and problematic theme is, we can't just look for, repetition and what we're expecting results, because this is trying to find the needle in the haystack, not the hay in, where there's just one needle. We can't just look for hay everywhere, which is what they'll go. They'll go, hey, this looks normal. Hey, this looks normal. We need somebody that's going to look microscopically at what is normal and then what is not normal, and then make those distinctions. So I realized that we need a center of excellence for rare diseases to do the types of treatments that I needed, and likely the late Dr. Roswell Park VIII needed. I went to Capitol Hill and I advocated as strong as I could this year for Rare Disease Week before the coronavirus happened, and I got through very many letters, from every single representative that I met with, even if they were not from the state of New York or if they were in a different district. They still agreed to send out letters of support, as well as $3 billion was allocated for a new National Institute of Health from Congress, which would be, the executive branch of the government, which is where one would go in order to get grants and grant money for things such as what I'm talking about. So one of the last things, that Dr. Park had sent to me via email, because I didn't actually know how sick he was, unfortunately. I believe that he didn't tell me because he didn't want me to be nervous for him. But he said that he was so proud of what I was doing, because he realized that it was people like me that were going to make it so that people like him and myself in the future, unfortunately, so for people after us, will have a place to go, and they won't hear the words that I heard actually at Roswell, which were, you need to go to a more comprehensive center for your care. And I looked at the doctor and I said, but this is Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Institute. you guys can't just be comprehensive about cancers, which you aren't, because I have another doctor as well, anyways, already doing a second opinion, which believes that I have a different type of leukemia anyways. So I'm not really that impressed by Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Institute, although Roswell Park the 8th was one of my best friends. He even told me to, quote-unquote, poke the bear, as I called it, because they don't like to pay attention to rare diseases or disorders, but out of just rare cancers alone, I had to remind them. And I do actually have a meeting whenever I feel comfortable and ready to present to the head of Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Institute why they need to do research in rare diseases as well as rare cancers. Since, let's see, out of 400 known cancers, 380 of them are deemed as rare cancers. That doesn't really make any sense to me. It's quite mind-boggling, and the number one cause of death in a rare cancer is just having a rare cancer. The number one death in cancers overall is if it's a rare cancer. And let's see, out of 400, 380 of them are rare. So I wonder if maybe that's why statistically, likelihood isn't really that great with cancer. Honestly, I don't understand how they're not researching these 380 rare cancers at Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Institute, which is deemed a National Institute of Health, a center of excellence for rare cancers, as well as rare diseases and cancers through the National Institute of Health Cancer Coalition and other coalitions that they are affiliated with. They're not only supposed to be comprehensive in cancer. That's not actually what that was supposed to mean, although the doctor tried to trick me into thinking that, which I was like, you guys aren't even comprehensive in cancers alone. But still, anyways, it doesn't work. You can't just be comprehensive about cancers only. If you're a comprehensive cancer hospital that is comprehensive, you put the word comprehensive in there, because if it was just called Roswell Park Cancer Hospital, we would already know that you were comprehensive in the knowledge of cancers, because you are a cancer designated hospital. But if you put comprehensive after that, that means that not only are you comprehensive about cancers, but you're comprehensive about diseases in general, and that you can make those connections, even the rare connections, even the zebra connections, because a zebra is a symbol for what a rare disease patient is, because they tell medical students to listen for hoofbeats, because they're supposed to be looking for the horses, which are more common than the zebras that have, stripes which differ and their patterns with every single one. Since every single person with rare diseases, they do all present differently with those rare diseases. And plus, my perceptions of my rare disease, even if we have the same one, will not be the same, even if it's not a disease that's normally a spectrum type of illness like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is something that I have, or chronic myeloid leukemia, or acute myeloid leukemia, which unfortunately is a very aggressive form of cancer, as we know, due to Dr. Park's passing. But through going to these different conferences at San Diego, for example, I met Crystal O'Loughlin, who is the founder of Angel Aid Cares, and they take care of rare mothers that have children with rare diseases. I met with her, and actually first I met her mother, and her mother was so impressed by me that she had her daughter track me down within the conference and run to find me to give me a business card to make sure that I contacted her after, because she really believed that I have it in me to do what her daughter has done, and she wanted her daughter to mentor me. So now she's my mentor, and she's an excellent speaking mentor and has done a lot to help me just feel comfortable getting out there, I guess. I will be interviewed by her for a YouTube channel that is, I think, going to be shared with Global Genes and the Ehlers-Danlos Society, but I'm not positive if it's both. I do know that it will be on Angel Aid's YouTube channel when she does interview me as a rare mom, because I am a rare mom that has, unfortunately, rare diseases. And then I also have a son, which I'm the caregiver of, which has presented with one of my rare diseases and was diagnosed shortly after his birth. based off of the fact that I went into labor very early and my water broke very early, and the membranes are made of fetal tissue, not of the maternal tissue, so therefore them rupturing early is a sign of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome presenting in the unborn child. And I happen to know that because I did study very in-depth the biochemistry of rare diseases, and it's the reason why Dr. Park actually wrote a letter explaining last semester that I needed to go to these conferences that I had set up because they were the capstone of my major. And they were the capstone of my major because where else am I going to learn about the biochemistry of rare diseases? Because I'm not going to learn about that at Buffalo State College. No, no, no. They can teach me about regular biochemistry, but not necessarily to do with diseases. They don't really go into that aspect. And as far as genetics go, there's not even anybody that teaches human genetics at Buffalo State anymore. It used to be a class, but it wasn't apparently popular enough. I guess it's because it's a liberal arts college, maybe. I'm not sure, but they don't have the professor there anymore. So at the San Diego conference, I got to get my picture taken with this sign, and it says a hashtag rare is, and I said an inclusive future for all. That means inclusive healthcare for everybody, because the system is broken in a way in which if you don't have adequate healthcare, you can't be healthy enough to get a job. And if you can't get a job, you can't have healthcare covered by your employer. So it creates a very vicious cycle. It's even happening in me because I have all these chronic diseases, yet I continue to try my best to succeed at least through school, but I get accommodations in which would not be accepted by an employer, says SSDI, which is very confusing. Although they do say that I'm disabled, they basically say that I'm too stubborn to give up, so I won't get SSDI, I guess, until I stop being so stubborn, which will never happen. But let's see, and then I went to the conference in Washington, D.C. in October, following after this conference. At that one, actually, I went there with Rachel, and that is that is my best friend, and somebody that I count as my sister. Although we are not born of the same family, I believe family is the people that choose to stay just because they want to, because they love you for who you are, not those who left because they couldn't accept the truth. So that is why they're my family. And unfortunately, very scarily, I get the biggest test of my life in the biochemistry of rare diseases and advocacy for public health when she fell ill, and I said, I believe that you're going to have seizures. You look like you're going to have a seizure. You look like you're having absent seizures right now. Please let me call an ambulance. Repeatedly, I explained this to her, and she wouldn't let me call. She kept fighting me on calling, and then by the time that her mother got there and had called, because Mom was, they have a house that's very close, and we had gotten a sponsorship in order to pay for the hotel for us so that we could stay on site, because they know that it's much more difficult for us to travel. So she fell ill. The paramedics got there after her mother finally called for an ambulance. She already had the seizures. I had to hold her down to prevent her from pulling out any of her lines, such as her J-tube, G-tube, and her PIC, and comfort her through it. The only thing that she tells me that she can remember actually is just my face. And I'm very blessed and I'm very grateful for the fact that I was given a great privilege and honor by being allowed to go into the ICU and advocate for her on her behalf, because at the time she was not able to for herself, and she could not actually form a full sentence and say it. And that's why I said cognitively something is wrong and something is off. So I would like to speak with who I'm going to have to deal with in case there's some malpractice lawsuit right now. And I'm like, I'm sorry to the nurse, this is what I'm saying, like, I'm sorry to involve you in this, but unfortunately you're involved in it because you just got on shift and this is your patient. And if your patient dies, that does actually fall on you as well. So please bring me that doctor. So that doctor came in, that doctor brought the other doctors that I felt were appropriate, and very quickly, since I don't want to divulge too much into someone else's information, I was able to, because of her rare diseases and because of my knowledge of the rare diseases that she specifically had in her specific medical history, figure out at least that she was going to have seizures and that she needed to be seen in the hospital. And then when she was in the ICU, when they had stopped the protocol of her medications, that was probably likely a main cause of some of her issues. So I was very blessed and very lucky to get to advocate on her behalf. She called me 6 hours later saying that she was basically saying that she was okay because partially due to me, which was something that made me cry. And then I made it to the next conference, which was actually in San Francisco, because the doctors actually did listen to me. I did go then to the next conference because I had to go to that conference and then get back to school, because this was also for school. So I went to the Data DIY conference. I did very wonderfully there. I actually made a comment and question that was more like I made a question that I knew that they wouldn't be able to answer on purpose, kind of to get them to be like, hey, you should be up here next year. Because honestly, the way that I've gotten myself out into this community so quickly is just by throwing myself out there into the action. And that's what some students are so afraid to do, is to throw themselves out there into the real world. And classes, will challenge them to throw themselves out into the real world. And they'll be like, I can't leave campus. I'm too scared to leave the campus to go to this meeting thing that we have for this group project. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't leave the campus? I'm like, what, did you think that you were just going to stay on campus for the rest of your life? Unfortunately, right now, I'm facing the whole, I'm graduating right now. What am I going to do next semester? Although I am in a master's program for public administration, I do have to hope and pray that I am able to get grant money and funding for that program. So I'm still thinking, what am I going to do next semester? Because this major is unfortunately coming to a very closely sewn end. So I did this, and then, I went to those 3 places. I did very well. I got lots of excellent feedback from my mentors there, to which I can attach to this video. But I don't want to go too in-depth about it. I just wanted to say that the reason why I picked public health and advocacy is because unless we have a society which is healthy, we won't have a society to worry about, unless it's healthy. So unless we're first standing up for people's basic rights, their basic rights as a human being to keep them healthy and safe, we won't have a market to fix. We won't have a society to fix and work with. Unless we all work together with advocacy about our individual stories, these problems will never be fixed. Because these problems date way, 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 way back in the Constitution. So unless we go to the electoral part of our government and we advocate on our behalf for our public health, it's not going to change. Health insurance will not change, especially if people don't go out to vote. So if you're watching this, please go out to vote. Because I will be posting this on my YouTube channel, as well as sending this in for my proof of the credit hours that I did. So since I did actually just last semester go to 3 different conferences, that is 3 credit hours per conference because of how much work they make you do at a conference. Usually you have to write a poster, abstract, or some type of speech to give out, and then you get stipend to go, or you get stipend to go to observe, or you get stipend to go to mentor somebody else. So I actually got stipend to go to mentor someone. I got stipend to go to observe, although I ended up making a comment anyways, which stumped the panelists, and then, they said that I should be invited to speak at one of the next conferences, which is currently being discussed, although there's some issues right now with conferences and people being public. Therefore, we are working out different types of outlets, such as data, which was actually the topic of my poster, which is hanging in the biology wing on floor 3 in the Science and Mathematics Complex. In the biology area, there's just one glass container with my big purple poster in there with a zebra. If you're interested in seeing it, that's some of the work that I've done. There's also a poster that was done at SSRC, which got me this award, which was given to me at commencement. Thankfully, I walked actually last semester, and people were asking me why I was walking last semester, since, since I was walking, last May. People were asking me why I was going to walk last May, and I said, well, even though I don't know if I'm going to have all of my petitions go through and therefore be able to graduate with this class, I'm walking now because I know for a fact that right now I can walk and that the people that I love can be there. That is why, and because they were allowing me to then walk because it was possible that I could graduate, although things did not work out in the manner in which I had wanted them to originally work out, although the manner in which they did work out is actually a pretty great way, and I am confident in the school's decisions now that I can see that, I was able to at least jumpstart my graduate studies as well as finish the program and then comprehensively get an overview of what I want to do with my life with public health and advocacy and where it needs to be changed and where the holes are by looking at history and social movements at the same time, which are 2 other classes which I am finishing up this semester, as well as this in public health and advocacy. This award that was given to me at commencement, it is for outstanding research and creativity. Apparently this award was actually made for me before I walked because I just kind of shocked the department. I was like, guess what, guys, I'm gonna walk. And it was like the day basically of our independent INS ceremony, and they were like, what? You didn't really tell us. I'm like, I know. Kind of did that on purpose, but still I got this award. I guess Carol and I believe Kate, although possibly Park too, had this award already pre-planned for me, apparently, ready for when I was going to walk. Because I was like, how did you guys get this ready the same day that I let you know that I was going to walk? It's got, a seal on this that's, got an imprint on it. It's got the Associate Provost signature. It's got Dr. Park's signature on it. Look, I've got his autograph, which is actually pretty awesome. And it's also pretty awesome that his wife knows, the books and stuff that I gave to him that my autograph's on. And that I wrote my first book about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome in his honor and memory. So I would just like to say, at the end of this, I do public health advocacy because I feel like it's my civic duty to stand up for people that I love, whether I know them or not, because I have so much love for humanity. It's very hard to be a humanitarian in times of trouble, but I do love humanity, and I do know that the only way that we can fix this is if we all work together and we listen to what everybody has to say inclusively. And what did this pandemic teach us so far? Well, in public health and advocacy, I'm going to advocate for the fact that it's taught us that if somebody's health is not good for them in a public environment and they can do the job remotely at home, like they have so many people doing right now during this time of this video that I'm doing at my house, and then going to send in and set up a camera and a location to where you can see all of this stuff, which it actually has a back, but I'm not going to flip it over and go through everything individually. But I did so much stuff in 2 years for this degree that it's left me in complete awe that I did this all in 2 years and that it's ending. That's the part that's the real kicker, that this is ending, because I love this so much. So no matter what, I know that I will always be a public health advocate and that I will always stand up and stand as tall as I can with my passion, with my charisma, and with my perseverance to be in the lowest likelihood of those to graduate, yet to be graduating with Bachelor's of Science, with a very high GPA, with a major GPA of a perfect 4.0 the entire time, and with a special award given to me at commencement. Also, I'm the only person that he stopped to take a picture with, which is so special to me because the picture shows so much pride. When you look at him next to me, he is standing so tall and so proud of me. And it's amazing, and it's the best gift ever just to have that picture. I was not able to afford pictures that they did for us at the ceremony, but I was just like, forget those pictures. I have a picture with the director of the program because he was honored to be my friend, because he saw what I do for the world and he understood its importance, because people like him and me need people like me. Therefore, he did actually think of the idea for me to start a program for public health and advocacy so that, well, we could copy some of the traits that I have into other people so that other people realize that it's their civic duty too to stand up and to tell their story. Because I will always stand up and tell my story, but I can't tell your story. So please, because you've seen this, consider sharing your story, because 1 out of 10 people in America has a rare disease. 1 out of 5 people have a chronic disease which is disabling to them. 1 out of 5 people. So how there's just this realization of inclusion of people working remotely from home because maybe they're too sick or they have situations like they have a child in which they can't do the hours that you would want at where they are located, but you can do them remotely, to now finally include people remotely because they have to, because there's a global pandemic. It's kind of shocking to me that it's taken a global pandemic to make people realize that inclusion is the future for all. So guess what? You're either with us or you're not. So you're either part of the future if you're going to work together, or if you're going to work against everyone else, you're probably not going to have the future really going your way as far as reforms and bills go. So work with us, because we want to work with you. Because I have amazing thoughts to bring to the table if they will just let me. And they will let me, because I will continue to advocate for that until they do. And I now also have a degree that makes their head spin when I say it. So this is the conclusion, a video showing my credits for this 499 degree semester. Well, I guess it's for my entire degree, really, for this 499 class, though. But this is what I've been doing for 2 years, and I've been doing it to a pace that's so quick and so fast and throwing myself out there so much that I've basically gotten myself noticed in less than 2 years of doing this. And mostly, it takes most advocates 10 years or something, or 5-10 years to get really noticed in this community. But I've just been like, hello, here I am. Like, I just jumped to the side. Because guess what? I will say whatever is on my mind. And if you don't like it, that is okay with me. You have your own opinion. But I'm still going to share my story and my thoughts. Because I do believe that they belong to be brought to the table as far as public health and advocacy goes. Because I care about your health too, and mine. And I believe that we are all entitled to our own versions of wellness. What we define and we feel is wellness with our doctors. We are all entitled to that. And we are all entitled to health insurance, which allows us to have the ability to see those doctors, because they do deserve to be paid by insurance companies, because that is the point of health insurance, which is a big problem right now. So therefore, hello, me the advocate, yes, advocating about that and so much more about public health. Thank you.